Hi again. Welcome to part 2 of homesteading, a home birth for homesteaders. This is midwife Monica coming to you from Willits, and in the first segment that you can watch, we've covered a lot of the third trimester things that might come up. We went over ways to choose your birth space and your birth practitioner. And kind of how to keep yourself low risk through nutrition and lifestyle, and what supplies to order. So in this second part, we're going to focus a lot on the actual labor and birth and early postpartum, including some nursing recommendations, and we'll just continue from the first segment. So let's dive in, and I will also do my best to keep it short and sweet. So let's remember that at term, the baby is quite nice size. I don't know if you could see this baby. This is a nice term baby, probably an 8-pounder. It's hard to see, but it's fully formed, has everything. And so the whole point of pregnancy is to gestate a healthy term baby, or two if you happen to have twins. And obviously to birth your baby out of the hospital and stay home as long as possible. So this is a really good preparation for anybody planning an out-of-hospital birth, especially if you live in rural areas. That's why I called it home birth for homesteaders, since many of us live rurally and we still want to birth our babies outside the hospital. And then there's just a few more things to be aware of and prepared for. So, so by now you're going into early labor, and let's talk about keeping birth normal and early labor, as well as when to call for help, what supplies you can have on hand, and kind of what to do in the early parts of labor. So everybody's different. If this is your first baby, expect labor to be about 1 to 2 days, with some early labor lasting, anywhere from half a day to a full day, and then more active labor lasting, 10 to 12 hours, depending on what you need. If you've already had children, this labor may be shorter than your last one. Not always, it just depends. There's a lot of factors, but often the second and especially the third birth tend to be pretty fast or faster compared to the first one. So, take off a few hours at least. And some people say half. It just depends. So in early labor, it's really nice to go about your regular routine. If it's in the middle of the night when it happens or when it starts, try to rest as much as you can and try to just be as comfortable as you can. Try to ignore early labor by continuing your activities. So you're not going to strain yourself, but if you want to go for a walk, or you want to cook, or listen to music, or anything like that you usually do when you're not in early labor, you can continue that. Don't go far away. Don't go on top of a mountain. Make sure you have your phone near you. Make sure if you have a partner that he or she has their phone, and if you've hired midwives, let them know as well in the early parts. Here's my kitty again. She just loves being on video. In the early parts. And I find that keeping things normal and kind of not focusing so much on oh my gosh, I'm in labor, how exciting, let's call everybody and let's stay up all night. This will save your energy. So that's my recommendation, is just to ignore it, kind of go about your day, and things will pick up. So it's not like I'm trying to tell you in active labor, when things are really on top of it, contractions are on top of each other, that you're going to continue that, but in the early parts. So early labor is considered, zero dilation with contractions, or ruptured membranes through 5 or even 6 centimeters now. It used to be 4. The guidelines are changing. I think because women, this is based on hospital practices, so because women were often admitted to the hospital and in too early, like at 3 or 4 centimeters, they were ending up with a lot of cesarean births. So I think they've changed their guidelines to help women stay out of the hospital. So that's my recommendation is kind of keep it low key, keep it to yourself until you want to share it with more people. I suggest not posting it on social media because it can create a lot of anxiety as people start to respond. So if you say you're in labor and then 2 days later the baby's not out yet or you haven't posted a picture of the baby, a lot of people get really anxious and they start calling and texting you and just trying to figure out what's going on. So I say keep it private. That's my suggestion for anybody, whether it's a home or hospital birth. But definitely, just go about the early part. Early labor can feel like menstrual cramps that come and go, and it's usually contractions can come every 20 minutes, even up to every 10 or every 5, but they're not really strong yet, and they're not lasting that long. You might think they're really strong, especially if it's your first baby, but they usually get stronger and stronger. So things that are really nice, besides all the ones I've mentioned, are you can take a shower or a bath. It can help kind of change the mood. Try if it's, the middle of the afternoon and maybe you need a nap, try taking a nap in between contractions. You may wake up when you have one, but then try to snooze. You can put on relaxing music. It's really, really helpful to get a massage in labor, especially in the beginning when you can receive more touch. So if you have a partner who likes to give massage or you have a massage therapist or a friend who's trained in massage, this might be a nice time to receive one. It just really depends on you and what you like to do. Some women will journal. Some women will get the very last of their baby stuff together. Or, I've had clients, clean their house or like scrub their floor. And we know baby's coming soon when a woman having contractions is on her hands and knees scrubbing her floor. It's usually a good sign. And I think there is this instinct, this hormonal instinct that makes you want to get stuff done because you're like aware that this is the last chance that you'll have before the baby comes and everything will be different. So as labor picks up and it becomes more physical, more demanding of your attention, this may be a time to call your midwives if you're having a midwife-attended birth, and definitely let them know, to start heading your way, depending on how far away you are. If your midwife lives far away or you're really rural, give her as much heads up as possible so that she can arrange to be there because, sometimes things can change quickly in active labor. And so if you're far away, you want to let them know sooner than later. And what I really feel makes active labor bearable is, every woman's different. So some women really, really need a lot of privacy to focus, and they often will go to the bathroom or maybe go to a part of the house that's quiet and doesn't have anybody in there. Some women really like that. And some women just really enjoy having more physical touch and connection. They don't really want to be talked to a lot when they're in active labor. I mean, you could definitely speak to them between contractions, but you don't want to confuse them or use really long sentences or ask them like 3 or 4 questions in a row, because all of those kinds of activities remove her from her deep work within herself, in her, in her brain, and try to put her back into her thinking brain, which is a different part of the brain that you use in labor. Because in labor, you're using the limbic part of your brain more, which is the reptilian part of our brain. It's part of our brain that has to do with safety. It has to do with warmth. It has to do with, low sounds, warm temperatures, healing, just more where you want to take up that healing space. So that's why a lot of people choose home birth and out of hospital birth, is because it's easier to achieve those elements in that setting, especially when it's your own home. Like, where your light switch are, you know how to turn the music on. Everything's right there. So, so those are, as labor picks up, you may need different coping skills. And people take different kinds of childbirth preparations. So this is just a little snippet to get you more interested in rural home birth, but definitely take classes ahead of time and learn as much as you can because it is a big topic. And today we're just talking about it for another half hour, so it's not quite enough time to cover everything. So the baby is an active participant in the birth process, and let's actually look at a baby. So this baby, this is a tiny little 5.5 pounder. Actually, it would be more like this. So here's my little baby model. The baby often comes this way. I don't know if you could see me. I might have to stand up. So baby's on the mom's left side, facing towards the front or towards either this way or towards the side, like that. And that is a really good position, but occasionally babies come what's considered posterior, which you can't see me, but the baby is considered sunny side up. So the front of the baby faces the front of the mom's belly. So in that kind of a situation, you may experience more lower back pain here, and you may have a longer labor because it'll take longer for the baby to rotate, if that makes sense. So, so the baby's an active participant. The top of the uterus gets really hard and really firm, and it pushes down during contractions. And the lower part of the uterus, where the cervix is, gets thinner and pulls apart to make space for the baby's head to come through. So the uterus is a very special muscle, and it's an organ as well, and a universe to the baby. So it does its job, and the mom and baby communicate via hormones through the placenta. And a lot of studies demonstrate that the baby sends signal to the mom saying that the baby's ready to emerge once they have enough development happening. So we don't actually know what causes labor, but there's a symmetry to it where the mom and the baby are interdependent and they're working together as a team. So the baby can actually push up with his or her feet up on the fundus, depending on their position. The baby definitely rotates. The head will rotate. So it's hard to see here, but there's these little soft spots. So this is the posterior fontanelle and an anterior. And this is something you're not going to be able to feel for yourself. It's really hard to check yourself internally, although I definitely don't discourage it. It's just when you have a really big belly and are having contractions, it's hard to do an internal exam on yourself. But you really want the baby to be well flexed and the head applied to the cervix. So these are some of the things that midwives can help with for longer births and to help the baby reposition. But if you're doing a birth where you're not being monitored a lot or not disturbed a lot, you might not even know. It might just take a long time. So make sure you're eating and hydrating throughout your labor. And this is really good to have someone else remind you of that, because birth is free of worry, and time and space just are presented in a different light during birth than they are in regular time. So you want to definitely have that freedom instead of feeling like on the clock or something like that. So let's talk about the process of actually pushing your baby out. I'm not going to demonstrate, but hopefully you've seen some videos. The best way, so there's many positions to birth a baby, but most moms who are not told, like, hey, get on your back and lay there to birth your baby, they're not naturally going to get into that position. It really depends. Being upright and being active can be good because you're using gravity. Laying down slows that down. Being in the water can kind of provide counter pressure if you're in the water at the time. So it just really depends on what your needs are and what you're going for. So with, as the contractions peak, moms, eventually there comes a point where a mom will get what's called the urge to push. And often it's when she's complete. Sometimes it's when she's like 6 to 8 centimeters because the baby's head is really low, and the pressure on the rectum from the baby being so low can stimulate that reflex. And sometimes moms will get to complete and not even have the urge to push for a while. So all of that is normal, but most moms will choose either an upright position. So anything where you're using gravity, that includes hands and knees. It includes being on a stool or a little seat. It includes being upright in the water, even though you have that buoyancy holding you up. You're still upright and using some gravity, maybe not as much to push the baby out, but definitely the position of the baby will help being in a more upright position. And if you feel really, really tired and you have to lay down, try not to lay down flat on your back, but rather on one of your hips, like your left hip or your right hip. And often there is a position, and it's supine, so laying down, where you're off your pelvis, so you're on your side. And sometimes it's helpful to have one of the legs towards you. It just really depends on what you're needing. Someone really need to hold on to something as they're bearing down and pushing. The edge of the tub, their partner, just something, birth ball. It just helps them kind of go in, and it actually makes that curve, if you see in my back. So the spine creates a curve that the baby kind of follows along. That's why when you're not flat on your back, the baby can actually have a chance to move down. I mean, when you're on your back, depends. Babies can still move down and rotate, obviously, but it's a little bit harder. So I'm not discouraging laying down. I just want you to explore other options. And hands and knees seems to be a really good one for a lot of women. I think it's really empowering position. But again, do what is right. And in the moment, just get into the best position that you want to be in. So we as midwives will adjust and we modify our bodies to meet where our client is at. So if you're kneeling or squatting or on the floor, we're going to get down there with you. And the whole idea of like a table, like an obstetrical table, that was created by male obstetrician to bring the patient up higher so that the doctor can just focus on, the genital area and not even have to worry about the woman whose body it is. And it's a convenient position for providers because they don't have to use their legs or knees or back and be inconvenienced. But it's not physiologically the best for the mom and the baby. So that's my 2 cents about that. And once you start to push, just be prepared if it's your first time pushing. It takes a little while to get into a rhythm. Or if you've had other children and maybe had pain medication like an epidural last time, it may feel really different. And also I did want to mention that if you have any trauma and like any history of childhood sexual abuse or rape or anything like that, even like violence against you, it doesn't have to be sexual violence, it can make being in your body and pushing harder. And I have seen some women who are survivors have a harder time pushing and actually almost get re-triggered. So I wanted to mention that. I know this isn't exactly the topic to talk about in length, and it's definitely not enough time to do justice, but I wanted to make that space. And this is one of the things that your midwife can help you with is to work through that. And sometimes birth can bring that up. So it can definitely bring up any old memories or traumas in the body that are stored there. So just wanted to mention that. And, I'm just sharing what's happening. I don't condone it in any way, but of course, we know that at least 1/3 of all women have experienced some kind of sexual abuse in their past. And even obstetrical trauma, something like 2/3 of women birthing in hospitals have had traumatic births. So that can come up too. Like if you had a really bad experience or you were cut, through an episiotomy, or some women just, weren't really given what's considered full informed consent, and they felt like things were done to them without their permission. That can feel very violating. So I promise when you work with me, I'm very, very respectful. Hands off unless hands are needed. Definitely will act. But most of the time I'm sitting back just observing and paying attention. So I'm not texting and trying to do other stuff. I'm really engaging and present and kind of like go with the flow, the ebb and flow of the contractions. So then, prepare to push for about 2 to 3 hours if it's your first baby. Some moms can take longer than that, but usually a baby will be out within that. It's good to kind of get into your own rhythm. And again, if it's your first time, it might take 45 minutes to an hour, but it's also something that your midwife can help you with. And meanwhile, if you have a midwife there, she's listening to the baby more often now because there's more compression and squeezing, less oxygen to the baby. So that's one of the things that we do in what's considered second stage. And as the baby begins to come out, and maybe I'll demo this just so you can see with my hands. So, at first you might not, but the midwife or your birth partner might see a little bit ahead, like a little bit. First we might see bulging a little bit ahead and then more of the head, but the head, comes out a little bit during a contraction and goes back. Comes back a little bit and goes back. And those perineal muscles that are on the bottom are kind of like a hammock. So they kind of stretch to make that opening for the head to come out and the body to come out. And it has to kind of be glided. So there's a little bit of this like massaging the muscle as the baby descends. And during the pushing phase. So it's better to do a slower push than a fast push. I don't really recommend like pushing as hard as you can for as long as you can because usually you end up not breathing as much. It's more painful. Your oxytocin can go down when you're being like forced to do something instead of like following your body and listening to how you feel. At the same time, what I wanted to say about that is sometimes there is a need for the baby to come out faster. So I don't want to say that you should take 2 hours. And some women won't need 2 hours. Like I've had first-time moms push a baby out in 20 minutes from the time they were ready. Totally possible. So this is just a spectrum, and I don't even really consider it second stage until the mom starts to push on her own. Sometimes in the hospital, they'll do all these checks and be like, oh, you're complete, you can push, but the mom needs another 20 or 30 minutes or an hour to incorporate the fact that she's going through labor before she's ready to go through second stage and push the baby out. So you're going to push, 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 and then take a break, push, 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 take a break. And during this time, it's good to keep lights low, temperature warm, mom comfortable. She might be sweaty. She might be getting shivery and shaky. She might be vomiting, just preparing you for all the different things going on. She might get scared because you get this extra rush of adrenaline when you're pushing. And so it's really helpful to have someone there reassuring her. And often we just say really simple things, like if the mom's like, oh, this sucks, or this hurts, or I can't do it, or it's just too painful. We just stay present with her and remind her, you're doing good. We can see more ahead. Things that are encouraging, you're pushing so good. Good job. Nothing super complicated, but definitely loving. And sometimes just touching her foot, if you're right there at the foot, or her back, if you're sitting behind her, just reassuring her, I think that touch can be louder than words in labor. I think that words sometimes can distract us. So short and sweet, loving. If you have your partner there, it's so nice if he or she can remind you how beautiful you are, you're doing a great job, how you're going to meet your baby, and feel really good. And so this is the moment of transition where you're going to meet your baby. And so it's very emotional. There's a lot of things happening, and I find that, sometimes women do get a little bit scared, so just getting a little bit of reassurance that everything's going well, and still checking on the baby and the mama, making sure everyone's good. So then, the head continues to descend, the head comes out, and then generally the next contraction, the whole baby comes out. So once the head comes out, that can take a long time, but then the body just slips out, like within a contraction or two. And that's all good. 30% of term babies have what is called a nuchal cord, and what that means is that the cord is wrapped around the baby's head and stuck. My placenta is stuck. So I'll try to demonstrate. This is not quite a really long cord, but here's a baby that has a pretty tight cord, but there's still some loops here, and I'm just demonstrating. Real cords are a lot more stretchy, but you can actually, I'm not doing a good job demonstrating. You can actually flex the baby's head and slip the cord off and kind of like somersault the baby out. Generally, the cord is really stretchy, so we could slip it around. If it's so tight that the baby can't actually come out after the head is out, there are things we can do. So just, clip a cord on both ends to help the baby come, but that's really rare. So when the baby comes out, depending on, the baby might just like, the nice thing is to just take your baby and claim your baby. That's your time. That first hour after birth is considered the golden hour. And look at how this baby looks really awake, right? So as soon as the baby comes out, you see the baby's eyes just glow and open during natural birth for the first hour or two. And that's the time the baby's going to be like super like all over you once the baby's breathing. So first airway means the baby transition is breathing. It takes 5 to 10 minutes for the baby to get their full supply of blood from the cord. So do not cut the cord in the beginning. Wait until it stops pulsing, and you'll know that because the cord will become flaccid instead of, you can actually feel the pulse. I don't encourage you to touch the cord or mess with the cord too much because it can restrict the flow, but just know that's happening. And mom usually needs a moment for herself because she's like, oh my gosh, I just gave birth. So if you watch some natural birth videos or have been to births, what we notice is that the mom's like, like takes, her 30 seconds or a minute to just incorporate the hard work that she just did before she's ready to engage her baby. So, you can definitely like hand the baby to her, or she can catch her own baby, but she might be like, wow, I just gave birth. If you've seen those pictures of those first moments after birth, the mom looks amazing, and she's just in between worlds. She's still realizing what just happened. Her body just expelled an 8 or 9 pound human and a placenta and lots of water, and it's a lot of transition. That's a lot of displacement. We don't generally, babies are the biggest things that come out of our bodies, so we need to make space for that. So the baby will come, and the best place is the belly and the chest. This is really familiar, and it's especially helpful because the cord, depending on how short or how long it is, you may not have that much room to bring it all the way up. Maybe you'll keep the baby on the belly. Just wait for the cord, and then your midwife or your birth attendant will help you with the placenta. And usually moms don't feel that part as much because once the baby comes, there's not as much pressure on the cervix, so the cervix goes from like 10 centimeters to maybe like 5 or 6, and so the placenta has to slip out. Here's a little placenta model I like to show. So yeah, the placenta doesn't have any bones and it can come out, but sometimes it gets a little, like if the cervix isn't as open now because there's not a head with bones, it can take a little finagging or sometimes a little bit of massage. I don't recommend like really rubbing the fundus. I'm not saying that, but just being aware and gently checking. You're looking at signs of separation, which might include a little bit of bleeding. Don't freak out unless it's a lot. Don't freak out anyway if there's bleeding, but you don't want to be like, oh, you just lost, a liter of blood. We'll just let you sit in it. No, we're not doing that. But, there might be a trickle, quarter cup, something like that. That's normal. Also, the cord will lengthen, so we'll actually see more cord visibly. The uterine shape will change once the placenta releases. There's different things we do to kind of know that the placenta has released, and will help you birth it. And from the birth of the baby to the birth of the placenta, you have at least an hour. It's good to kind of see the placenta come out in the first half hour to 45 minutes, but, you can take longer if need be. Usually by an hour, hour and a half, if it hasn't come and there's no signs of separation, then we're thinking possible retained placenta. But, depending on the situation. So you'll have a little bowl to catch your placenta, and you have Chuck's pads under you to catch the fluids and the blood. So that's what placenta birth looks like. And afterwards, it's nice to rub the uterus, rub the belly, and kind of help everything come together. And you may want to take herbs. I'm not going to go over the herbs for postpartum, but definitely if you have questions, I'm available for consultation about that. Some moms have a special drink or a special snack, like a smoothie. Some moms actually take a part of their placenta postpartum too, so that's something to keep in mind before encapsulation or whether you're going to encapsulate or not. There's just a lot of different things, but you definitely just that hour or two should be undisturbed. There's no reason to weigh the baby in the first 10 minutes. The baby will weigh the same in an hour or two. The baby just needs that time with their mom and dad. And meanwhile, your midwife is actually checking on the baby. So if the baby's not doing well, then of course she's going to be doing things to help and help resuscitate. If you're home alone and the baby comes really fast, it might be really helpful to take a neonatal resuscitation class prior to your birth so you know what to do, and you could do mouth to mouth with the baby or even chest compressions. But that's rare. Most of the time babies, just rubbing them, drying them, helps them cry and helps them empty out their lungs. But it's something to consider. So that's really that first, second stage, and then third stage is the placenta. Fourth stage is that first, really 3 to 4 hours after birth. Traditionally, fourth stage is third stage that you could say, actually, if you do research on it, but fourth stage as well is one of the most dangerous times. So third stage with the placenta still in is when women can start to bleed, generally because there's too much futzing around with the placenta. Often those moms have been induced, they're in the hospital, they've been given Pitocin for days or hours and hours, and their uterus is tired. So yeah, there is a greater risk of her bleeding out. Also, big babies, also really long labor, also, moms who maybe have already had like 4 other children. All those things can be other risk factors, but you would know yourself. So, first-time moms who eat well and who take good care of themselves are pretty low risk. But I just wanted to mention that. So third and fourth stage, really important to still be vigilant, still watch, still keep things really low-key. And meanwhile, the baby's trying to root. And let's talk about the first breastfeeding, because I think that for me, the way I understand the birth process, and again, you guys can't really see this very well, but let's just pretend the baby comes out and then the baby kind of loops back around. So, going down and then up to the belly after birth, and then the baby comes, up to the boobs. We're teaching a lot more of what's called laid back breastfeeding now. It used to be what I would consider almost bottle feeding with the breast, because we've lived in a bottle-friendly culture for so long. But now we're, the mom is reclined at a 45-degree angle. She's really comfortable. She's got lots of support pillows under her back and her arms, and the pillow under the baby if need be, or the baby's just on her. And you place the baby in between the two breasts and kind of let the baby support the baby's head and the baby's back, and let the baby kind of bob down to the breast. And the baby will open his or her mouth really wide, like they're going to take a big bite. And during this time, if you're helping your baby, you can actually bring your baby closer. You can also use what's called the C hold on the breast to help the baby. And it's kind of confusing because the baby's head's all wobbly and they're still slippery and there's breast and fluids everywhere. So sometimes the baby's really moving around a lot and trying to take a little bite. And then the baby will hopefully start to suck. But don't be discouraged if that takes a little while. It doesn't have to be right away. Some babies don't latch in the first hour or two, so don't freak out if that happens. But definitely get support if breastfeeding is hard. That first latch, there's a lot of studies that say if a baby latches within the first hour or even 2 hours, that the success of the mother breastfeeding goes up exponentially. So the longer it is for the first feed and the harder it is to get the baby to latch in the beginning can mean that this baby may have a harder time receiving breast milk. So that's kind of been like the reason why people promote the first hour to breastfeed, and we really like that. But what I've seen is that some babies need longer than that, and those babies may include babies that have been deeply suctioned, babies that were resuscitated, babies that have any birth injuries, or just a baby that's in shock from a really fast birth or from a really tight cord. Those babies may not be ready to nurse in the first hour. They may need a little more time. So that's just how it goes. You have to be able to breathe and be in your body before you're ready to eat. So that's kind of what I've seen, and definitely if it takes longer than 2 hours, you could still breastfeed your baby. You definitely want to get more support if you're having a hard time. I think lactation consultants are awesome. Midwives know a lot about lactation. A lot of postpartum doulas and birth doulas do too. And it's really the time to receive. So there's nothing wrong with having someone help you and check on you. And actually, that's what traditional cultures did and still continue to do, is they have the woman who just gave birth, she's around her mom and her grandma and her sisters and her aunties who've all breastfed. And in the first month, they stay home and do a baby moon. In a lot of cultures all over the world, the first 4 to 6 weeks is considered that time of lying in and resting. And I highly, highly recommend it. We can do another video talk on that. But it's really the time to learn how to breastfeed. And so traditionally, you've had other women teach you and help you. And it's not like, just because you grew up watching your mom or sister, there's still a learning curve because each baby's different and they're shaped differently and their mouths are different and each breast is different. So there might be a little bit of figuring it out in the beginning, which is totally normal. Well, I'm going to let this piece end because I want to honor our time together. If you need any more support or assistance, please reach out. I'm Midwife Monica at midwifemonica.com, and also with Tree of Life Midwifery Services if you live in rural Northern California. I do both in-person and remote, like Skype and phone calls, depending on what you need. And I work with families all over the world now, so it's really awesome. If you need anything, let me know. I'm here to serve. And I really, really appreciate connecting with you. If you found value in this video, feel free to share it. By no means am I trying to talk people into having rural home births, but I definitely want to speak to that audience for those that are doing them. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Again, I'm Midwife Monica Rashitska with Tree of Life Midwifery Services, sending you lots of love and lots of healing for you and your family. Let's get together soon.